Hello, guys. What is up, and welcome back to our third installment of this draft. We already went over the first 16 picks. Our last 8 picks were featured between the Buffalo Bills to the Dallas Cowboys, and those picks were Bills going with Jake Matthews, Lions with Mike Evans, 11 is at Justin Gilbert from Oklahoma State, 12 is Taylor Lewan. 13 is Notre
Zach.
Dame's Zach Martin. Yeah, and you do the rest. I think it was
14 was Aaron Donald to the Chicago Bears. 15 was Eric Ebron to the Pittsburgh Steelers. 16 was Haha Clinton Dix to the Dallas Cowboys.
yeah. And
And
now
the Ravens are up.
the Ravens are up. Now there has been a lot of free agency moves. We're doing this draft in the middle of free agency frenzy, and the big headlines since our last podcast. I think Darrelle Revis has now a 2-year deal with the Patriots. Eric Decker has gone to the Jets, and the Broncos have got T.J. Ward, DeMarcus Ware, and Aqib Talib on their team, thus upgrading all their positions in those categories. But now let's go to the Baltimore Ravens, and they're on the clock. What are their first 3 biggest needs for this team?
The Baltimore Ravens' biggest need is right now they're probably looking at wide receivers. We don't really know what's going to happen with free agency right now because it's no longer tackle is their biggest need because they did address with Eugene Monroe. But tackle still is a need regardless because Ricky Wagner, he was a fifth round pick. Are you really going to put all your stock on a fifth round pick to play right tackle for you next year? You invested a lot of money in Joe Flacco. If you have back to back bad years, Ozzie Newsome, what's going on? Why is Joe Flacco? You paying him all this money and he's regressed after his payday. Similar to Ryan Fitzpatrick. They still have a need big time there. Wide receiver, of course, I've mentioned, and I would say you would probably have to go for inside linebackers as well too because they did lose Darrell Smith and Arthur Brown could man one part of it, and they're hoping Arthur Brown develops into that starting lineup, our starting lineup. But outside of him, you're also going to need one.
Right, because Darrell Smith is hasn't been re-signed and he's on his way out. It seems. So let's go with what do you think they're going with the 17th pick?
Obviously, this is probably going to change as free agencies happen. But I have listed as Morgan Moses, the offensive tackle out of the University of Virginia. Long, athletic. A lot of teams are going to like him. He has a ton of upside. And right now, he's kind of become that guy who's jockeying in as a fifth tackle because there's a consensus on the 4 tackles that are probably going to be first rounders. Morgan Moses and Cyrus Quanjo, guys like Antonio Richardson. Some people even have Sorrell Richardson. There's a bunch of tackles that are right after those 4, but Morgan Moses probably is the one that most teams are starting to like a little bit more so than others.
Right, and Morgan Moses. I know he's from Virginia, and I know he's sneaking in, and it'll be interesting to see that
Yeah,
five
because he's
tackles.
long, athletic. He came in the combine. He looked pretty good. He came in and pretty much had pulled out a Cordy Glenn type of performance at the Senior Bowl as well too. So he had like a postseason like Cordy Glenn, and Cordy Glenn like stock was around third round, and he eventually moved up to an early second round. Morgan Moses might be able to break in and probably maybe even get to the first round, especially considering that teams do need a lot of offensive line help this year, especially this year.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see that 5 tackles will be gone before the 18th pick, and 4 tackles gone within the first half of the draft in our
And
draft.
people are realizing that you're going to have to win this thing through up front. That's how you're going to win championship. It's going to be through the linemen.
Right. Now let's go with the New York Jets at 18, and what are their 3 biggest needs after we have heard that Eric Decker has signed with the Jets today?
The New York Jets, even with Eric Decker signing with them, opposite to him, they're really fighting with Stephen Hill and Jeremy Curley. A wide receiver still a need. I don't think that Eric Decker is a fix-all, end-all story. He's not. They're going to be their number one a wide receiver. You probably need help now at tackle, considering your loss at tackle. I'm trying to remember the man's name. The right tackle.
Austin Howard, he signed with the Raiders.
Austin Howard. Yes. They're replacing him with Ode Abashi, but Ode Abashi is a fifth-round pick. If they seen enough promise with him, by all means, they should take him as their starting right tackle. But he's still a fifth-round pick, so it's still probably a little bit of a need. And obviously, that the Jets have shown that they don't really trust Geno Smith. So there's a chance that they could also address quarterback at some point in this draft if they decide that they can't pick up a veteran, which it is. And of course, probably right now the biggest need is at corner. D. Milner was awful last year, and opposite to him, you really don't have anyone I could really consider that is starting material. Kyle Wilson, Razak Dowling, I mean, all of these guys, they're not starting material.
Right. So
corner is probably now the biggest need since they did let go of Antonio Cromartie.
Yeah. So with the 18th pick, who do you think the Jets are going to take in this draft?
And I have them taking Odell Beckham, a wide receiver out of Louisiana State. Somebody actually to stretch the field. And it would actually complement Eric Decker a little bit because he'd be able to run across the middle, get the tougher yards. Eric Decker can do that. And Odell Beckham probably could stretch the field a little bit more. And he's a little bit more of a quick in and out. And they could complement each other really well. So even if with Eric Decker, I could really see this pick making a lot of sense by adding Odell Beckham as a wide receiver out of LSU who has really rised up my boards and played.
All right. So now at 19, we stay in the same division, and we have the Miami Dolphins this year at 19. What are their three biggest needs?
The Miami Dolphins, they addressed their left tackle position with the signing of Brandon Albert. So that's probably out of the table, but they still do need that guard because they did lose. They're probably not going to. Did they let go of Richie Incognito yet?
I believe so. And
after Richie Incognito, they were pretty bad at guard anyway. Dallas Thomas, he can handle one side of the guard, but they also have need at tackle either way. So they're going to need it. And they also have a need at linebacker. Janelle Ellaby, I know they paid him, but I wasn't really impressed with him that much. And as far as that goes, inside or outside linebacker, you need help at both positions. But they did address the defensive tackle position with the signing of Earl Mitchell, who fits actually their system better than he fit Houston's.
Right.
And you could also need another pass rusher. Deion Jordan didn't give you virtually nothing. You traded up for him. Hopefully he produces and gets better, but he virtually gave you nothing from a pass rush standpoint, which was not that much of a surprise for me because he wasn't a big sack guy even in college.
Yeah, and I was hoping he would do good because, Cameron Wake is the main guy there on that defense. I was hoping maybe he would have freed him some holes for Jordan, but I was hoping a little bit more production out of Jordan than that.
Yes. And another position we could probably put also in there is also running back because there's not a lot of trust right now with Lamar Miller.
Yeah, if this was the season for him to bust out, because a lot of people are expecting him to do really good this season.
Yeah, I was expecting it a year ago, but like year 3 now, a running back, you've got to pick it up because running backs' life shelves are short to start with, and you're already 3 years behind. You got to start picking it up. You want that big time money.
Yeah. So who do you have the Dolphins going with at 19?
I went with a little bit of a surprise here. Most people won't agree with it, but I was thinking a little bit outside the box and go with Gabe Jackson, the offensive guard out of Mississippi State, who's rising up the boards. We're at the point right now, and I went back and I reviewed it and watched the combine, broke down some more tape, and I reviewed it. And I'm starting to see a little bit more why everybody's trending to Gabe Jackson. I had Gabe Jackson in the first round of the preseason. I kind of lost him during the season. Mississippi State wasn't on TV as often. They didn't play up to their expectations because I expected them to play a lot better than they did. I kind of lost track of Gabe Jackson a little bit. and he fell. At the end of the year, I went back and I looked at what happened, and Gabe Jackson was just as good as he was the year before. He was just as good as the year he was the year before, and even watching him, as much as I like David Yankee and Xavier Sofeli,
Yeah.
am I pronouncing it right? Sofeli from UCLA, the offensive guard from UCLA. I think Gabe Jackson's ahead of both of those guys as far as guards is concerned, and he's probably the best interior lineman. So it would probably replace that Richie Incognito need. You would probably get that guard, maybe hoping to open up lanes for Lamar Miller and give yourself that left side that you didn't get from Richard.
Martin. No, from what's his name?
Yeah, Richie Incognito and Jonathan Martin.
Yeah, which Jonathan Martin has been traded to the 49ers.
Niners, yeah. Obviously, but he didn't play up to the expectation. Even before then, I still thought that Jonathan Martin struggled at the right tackle, and then when he was moved to the left tackle, he was even worse. And then all this drama happened, and now everything's clean house. They can forget about both of those guys. They already signed Brandon Albert, and now they draft Gabe Jackson.
Yeah. So now at the 20th pick, we have the Arizona Cardinals. What are their three biggest needs?
Arizona is in need of still of probably another tackle, but they're not going to address it because they did sign Jared Valadier from Oakland, so it's not as big of a need anymore. They also probably can use another running back, Andre Ellington, but I wouldn't suggest that they draft one in the first round. Andre Ellington is good, but I don't think he could take a big time pounding. He's less than 200 pounds.
Right,
He's a little more of a scat back.
And
Running back. He could be your feature running back, but I just would rather have another running back with him. Stephon Taylor might be that guy, but based on what I saw last year, it was a very, very disappointing season for Stephon Taylor. And I would also say consider also pass rush. Pass rush is probably now their biggest need. Now that they signed Jared Valadier and you're actually giving Carson Palmer some time, I think pass rusher could be a big time need as well too.
Right. And they still have John Abraham, which he was a good pickup for them. They lose Carlos Dansby also, but they do have Washington, I believe, as their.
Yeah, but that's more so from the inside linebacker. I'm talking about as far as pass rush outside linebackers. John Abraham is there, but how many more years can we really rely on John Abraham to be as good as he is? He's not 35 years old. I don't see too many 35-year-old still getting 10 sacks or 12 sacks anymore. I probably think that you've got to move on past him, and you're probably going to have to address the pass rusher.
Right. So who do you have them taking at the 20th pick?
I have them taking D4, the outside linebacker from Auburn.
Yeah, and he's the number 30 for Auburn. He had a wonderful BCS game. I remember that. And
this is actually a little bit kind of now that we're looking at it, because his pro day was done like when we first did our first mock draft, I believe. It's moved. His status has moved a little bit more up than what it is. I'd be really surprised if he fell all the way down to Arizona. But this is a mock draft. There's no trades, and after Chicago and Dallas, there's not a lot of teams that's really between the Ravens, Jets, and Dolphins really don't need pass rushers. So D Ford is probably the pick over here.
Right, and now we head over to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and the Green Bay Packers are picking here at 21. And what are their biggest needs?
Their biggest needs, I would probably say they still need help at the defensive line. I know that B.J. Rodgers probably might come back for a little bit less money. There's a chance that happens. We're not sure about his whole contract situation. They still need help outside of Dayton Jones. There really isn't a defensive lineman out there. You need help probably at inside linebacker as well. And, of course, their biggest need still is safety.
Yeah, I say safety is their number one need.
Yeah,
And
it's still safety, and you still also need another position that it might be a little bit underrated. I don't want to get to every single position possible that them, but they can also you address a tight end position
right
as well.
with the loss of Jermichael
Jermichael
Finn.
Finley and Jermichael Finley had a case of the drops and he dropped a lot of passes and then with the whole injury and
Yeah,
it's just best suited and you also lose Andrew Corliss. So
right. And so at 21, who do you think the Green Bay Packers are picking?
with the 21st pick, I would probably go with Timmy Jernigan, the defensive tackle from Florida State. Uh, I
Yeah, go ahead.
I usually would have thought Timmy Jernigan was more of a five technique, but for those who don't understand five technique, it's a defensive end in a 3-4. He plays between the guard and the tackle. I thought of him more of a five technique, but the more and more I thought of it, and the way I saw him even using the national championship to play that one gap, I think that might be his best position because nose tackle has to be the most intense defensive lineman in your entire defensive line. Timmy Jernigan is intense when he plays with a lot of intensity, and he would be a perfect fit here for the nose tackle because he's not as far as a stuffer. He's not Vince Wilfork, but he could be a nose. He could still play that nose tackle. Even we've seen it in the past before with guys like Jay Ratliff, he wasn't exactly over 330 or anything. Jay Ratliff was just at 300 pounds. He was a little short, stocky guy who brought in a lot of intensity and took on double teams and triple teams. I think Timmy Jernigan can do that.
Yeah. And Green Bay, I think the first three picks are all going to be defense for them. I don't see
Mm-hmm.
them going. I think the surprise will be anything offensive. But
They
yeah.
still need help at offense, but their defense is probably where their biggest what's been holding them back a little bit.
And now we go to Philadelphia at 22. The Eagles are picking here. And what are their three biggest needs?
Uh, I don't think that they should be addressing offense anymore at this point. After the signing of Darren Sproles, I love that. I mean, I love the addition. It gives them another weapon, and I don't think that they're going to be addressing any more offense. They can focus all their attention on defense in the draft. They have needs at the defensive line, both at nose tackle because Benny Logan he's a little undersized and he kind of doesn't really fit that mold because they drafted Benny Logan to play the five technique, but he's been ended up playing the zero, which is the nose tackle.
Right.
He's been ended up having to play that. They need a nose tackle. They also have they signed Malcolm Jenkins, but Earl Wolf, the fifth round pick, he played decent at times, but you can always upgrade from him. And of course, free agency is obviously going to change, like as far as my pick goes. As well as an inside linebacker, D'Amico Ryans did not play as well as I would have hoped, and this is year 3 now for him in Philadelphia. He's got to pick it up. He's good. He's a good leader and all, but as far as his own play, he's got to pick it up because Mikael Kendricks has really been the better inside linebacker between the two, and you need two inside linebackers to run a 34.
Right. So who do you have the Philadelphia Eagles picking here at 22?
I would like to have changed this, but I'm going to stick with it right now because we don't know where we're in free agency and all this type of things going to change. It's going to take us. But I'm going to take Calvin Boyer. He slides a little bit down here.
Yeah, to Philadelphia. He's a really good safety out of Louisville.
And he's a hard-hitting guy. He's going to come in there. He's going to be the enforcer. He's going to do eventually what Earl Wolf does for them, but it's going to be with a little bit with an upgrade to everything.
Right.
Earl Wolf would be described a little bit as a poor man's Calvin Boyer.
Yeah.
Prayer.
Yeah, and also they did sign Malcolm Jenkins, I believe, from the Saints.
It changes the dynamic of it, but Malcolm Jenkins wouldn't probably change where as far as Pryor would play because Malcolm Jenkins is more so centered to be the center fielder, the true free safety, the Brian Dawkins, the Ed Reeds, those type of guys. That's what Malcolm Jenkins does. Ed Pryor is going to be the enforcer. the Bob Sanders, the Troy Polamalu's. Those guys are probably going to be in the box. They're going to hit hard, and they're going to be able to cover areas. But I really don't think that Calvin Porter is going to fall this low. But the way that my mock draft just ended up having to go, this is where he ends up landing at.
Right. And now we go to the 23rd pick with Kansas City with the big rebound year they had at picking number 1, and now they're at number 23 here in this draft. What do you think their 3 biggest needs are?
They need another tackle. That's probably their biggest offensive need. Their defense was really ranked high, but their offense has kind of fluttered, and sometimes it was inconsistent. They also need help at tight end as well too.
Yeah, they can use some more offensive weapons, and then they did lose
more offensive weapons overall, even at wide receiver. But I do think that they do like Donnie Avery. Donnie Avery, playoff-wise, I don't know why everybody doesn't think that he can be a number 2 wide receiver. I think he's serviceable enough, and I think Andy Reid does like him. You do need help in the secondary a little bit, because we also what happened to them against the Indianapolis Colts. They couldn't hold the lead. They had a big lead. The offense took care of their part in that department. Their the backs couldn't hold their own.
Yeah, the defense fell asleep.
Yeah, they did not hold their own. I mean, Justin Houston and Tama Hali are not going to get you sacks every single game, all the time.
So at 23,
but I also think the secondary is also in need. And I'm hearing rumors that I don't know if it's true or not, but Brandon Flowers could actually move to free safety, and they'd probably pick up another corner because Marcus Cooper is not starting material. If anyone watched the Denver games, the 2 Denver games, they know Marcus Cooper's name.
Right. Isn't he? Yeah. Is he the corner that's number 31?
31. Yes, he could not cover.
He was a rookie that a lot of people kind of liked at Rutgers. But yeah, he was bad in the Denver game. It was really bad.
He got torched both of those games, and in Indianapolis, he wasn't all that great either.
Right.
Against Indianapolis.
So at 23, who do you have Kansas City taking?
I have him taking Eric Ward, the safety out of Northern Illinois, who's right now sneaking in. A lot of draft nicks aren't talking about him, but he's sneaking into kind of that first round type of mode because after the Senior Bowl, he gained a lot of momentum, and I saw him in a few mock drafts in the first round, but afterwards he kind of disappeared. Other names started coming up. You started seeing Deion Buchanan and all these type of things. Ward kind of fell out because the last 2 years, Northern Illinois has lost a total of, I believe, 3 games. The guy who's been the star of the team, everybody's been considering, it's Jordan Lynch. For me, it was really Eric Ward. He was the star of the team, and I think that this would be a perfect fit right here to go along with Eric Berry, where you can switch them, be able to one play strong safety, one play free safety. But Eric Ward will probably be more so the free safety, more so than Eric Berry. But he can also cover man to man as well too. So you can go man to man all across the board with Brandon Flowers, Eric Ward, Eric Berry, and Sean Smith.
Yeah, that would be a really nice pickup and a really underrated player into this draft. I think is him from Northern Illinois. And now we go to the last pick of today. It's the Cincinnati Bengals here at 24. For some reason, the Cincinnati Bengals just cannot win the first round in the playoff game. And
Marvin Lewis has not been able to pull it off.
And
they're going to start asking questions pretty soon. And Hugh Jackson has had coaching experience. There might be a replacement in Cincinnati if they can't get it done this year.
Right, and I was funny because during my Real Football Talk podcast I had for a while, I told my friends, listen, Houston is losing now. They're not going to the playoffs. Cincinnati, you better take advantage. You're playing at home. You're not playing the Texans anymore. They've been your roadblock for the past 2 years. I know Andy.
San Diego
and then next thing you know, San Diego.
And I kind of had a feeling that the Chargers, it wasn't just because it's the team I grew up watching. I really felt San Diego was going to win that game because Andy Dalton's limitations.
Right. Andy Dalton is a sufficient starting quarterback, but he doesn't. He cannot change the game around like an Andrew Luck.
He has to have a good supporting cast around him, a great supporting cast around him, having a good running game, having probably one of the best two wide receivers in the game. Mohamed Sanu, he's a solid number two, and a pretty good offensive line, and that defense is no slouch as well either.
Yeah.
So we're gonna see without Jay Gruden and I'm trying to
Mike Zimmer.
Mike Zimmer.
Yeah. Mike Zimmerman, yeah. Without them, how this Bengals team does.
How does this Bengals defense look like? And as far as need is concerned, we would probably start at left tackle because they don't have one.
Yeah, they just let go of Collins.
Left tackle listed on their team.
Yeah, Collins has.
I'm looking at their depth chart as far as right now. They don't have a left tackle. That means that it's automatically their first need. Because do you really think Andre Smith could play left tackle? You didn't pay him all that much money, and he was projected to play that position at college. But he's been such a solid right tackle. You really want to ruin a good thing? They're gonna have to probably address the left tackle position either through free agency or through the draft because you don't have one right now. You also probably have to replace Charles Johnson. Even though he gave people only 3 sacks, he was better than what his stats said. He's moving on to greener pastures. You also lost James Harrison. He's traded, so you need help at both pass rushing positions. And an underrated one would probably be a cornerback. You could possibly also need help because Terrence Newman hasn't been. It's getting a little bit older, and of course, Drake Kirkpatrick hasn't played up to the level that we thought he was going to play to.
Right, and I just think I've seen the Cincinnati Bengals offense. You know, last year's offense, I was thinking that their limitations were based on Andy Dalton. You know, if they had a game-changing quarterback. You know, this offense.
But I don't think they're going to go away from him, though.
No, I know that they're going to still stick with him. You know,
But I think that they should upgrade. I should think that they should be one of those teams that maybe go out and have a competition. Maybe sign a Michael Vick or so. Sign a Michael Vick to compete with Andy Dalton.
Right, because, you know, you look at this offense, you know, they did draft, you know, Tyler Eifert last year, so they have 2 solid tight ends. They have A.J. Green, who's arguably a top 5, if not one of the best receivers in this game. Their defense.
You can argue he is the best receiver outside of Calvin Johnson.
And from what I've heard on TV, you know, these analysis, they say.
You also forgot Giovanni Bernard. I love that guy.
Yeah. And
that guy's electric. It's like watching Reggie Bush again.
Right. And then also, who's the tight end? The other tight end they have?
Jermaine Gresham.
Which they also.
Ben Jarvis Green Ellis.
Yeah, and you know this offensive line is not that bad either, but they did lose a left tackle, so
left tackle, and that's probably their biggest need right now at this point. But I do have them at that point because I thought that they would have signed maybe a tackle by now, but I was expecting Michael Johnson probably to leave, so I did give him Coney Ely, which would still make sense at this point to grab him. Coney Ely, what he's actually shown us what he can do, he could actually stand up and play outside linebacker if he wanted to, because that was always one of the knock on him. People thought he was a little stiff. He's not as stiff as people say he was. He can move. Coney Ely, in Cincinnati, he'd be playing obviously in a 4-3. He'd probably have his hand on the ground and doing what he did in Missouri. And this wouldn't be the first time that the Bengals have had successful Missouri pass rushers. Missouri pass rushers have been high in the NFL. If you look all around across the league, there's been a few of them, whether it be Sheldon Richardson, Alden Smith,
Justin Smith.
There's a lot of good defensive linemen and pass rushing outside linebacker and defensive ends who have come from Missouri. Coney Ely, I think he might be the next one in line, and that's where I have him slated to.
All right, and that wraps up the third installment of the draft. And we will be doing our last picks, which will be your San Diego Chargers finally hit the board. Cleveland Browns' second pick. We have New Orleans. Then we go, after New Orleans, we go to the same division, go to Carolina. After Carolina, we head to New England. After New England, we go to the 49ers. Then we go to the Super Bowl losers in Denver and the Super Bowl champs in the Seattle Seahawks. And do you have any teasers for the listeners for those picks?
Yeah, there's a guy who fell down the board, and he's gonna end up probably a Pro Bowler, but he's probably gonna be picked in the latter stages of the first round.
Right, and I may know who you're talking about. So stay tuned, guys. Listen to Draft Days 101 to the previous podcast. Like and subscribe to his page, and we'll bring you more content. And so we'll hit you up next time for the last installment of the draft. But don't worry, we won't end it there. We actually have people who fell out the first round. Draft Day may have some sleepers for y'all to watch out, and all the other great stuff for this draft. So there you go. Anything else you want to tell the listeners?
Uh, this mock draft's been a little bit difficult because it's been during free agency, but
Yeah, we
you
may.
guys gotta hold on with us. You just gotta hold on with us because it's changing daily, and I'm looking at the signings right now, and and it's changing our mock draft almost daily.
Right, and we may, after all said and done, maybe within the first week of May, we may, do a quick, draft podcast so that way, everybody, all the hype and everything, free agent signings are done, and headed into the draft, we can do a quick one there. So it'll be as close as we can get to the picks, maybe, for us. But until next time, I'm Gerado, and that's Draft Day 101, and tune in next time.